So today on the Touchdown with Aaron Masemola, we talk women in sports, but also we continue the conversation around the hockey field. We are talking to a lethal striker that plays for South Africa, but also she has a full-time job, which gives us an interesting view as to how athletes balance a full-time job and also being able to keep it professional on the field as well. Her name is Sylvia van Jaarsveldt. Sylvia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself, Aaron?
I'm doing very, very well. It's always good to touch base with women in sport, but also the most interesting thing about yourself is that you actually have a full-time job. So for me, that's actually quite interesting. How do you balance the two?
Aaron, now it's a very difficult question. So I'm currently a teacher at St. Sylvian Schools College. I'm teaching business studies, accounting, and economics and management sciences, so all the financial subjects. Yeah, it is quite tricky doing the teaching in the morning and then either in the afternoons doing extramural activities, coaching hockey, or being involved in some kind of event at the school. And then in the evenings, having my own personal hockey, or over the weekends, trying to balance if we have matches with school and then having my own matches as well. Luckily, the school and between my sports, it's quite amazing how the two balance one another out and the two just complement one another. I do think personally, if I was in a full-time career as in the corporate world, I think it would be a lot more difficult to try and balance the two. But I must admit, the support I'm getting from the school in terms of my own personal hockey is phenomenal, and I don't think I would achieve half of the things I'd achieved if I didn't have their support and their backing.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. And I think you mentioned your personal hockey there. And the one thing that has always caught me off guard with regards to athletes is how they actually fall in love with the sport that they actually do. How did you come about finding your passion and your love for the sport of hockey?
So it's actually a very funny story. I started playing hockey in grade 3, and the teacher we had coaching us at that time, I didn't really like her, so she ended up making me hate the sport. And when I got to grade 4, my registered teacher at that point in time was Miss Penzorn, and she created a love for hockey that I think never ever extinguished. When I went then on into high school, the staff and the teachers and the coaches we had there, including the provincial coaches, were phenomenal. And I think because they have such a big passion and a big love for the sports, it sort of grew on me, and it just made me pursue it more and more and more. Also, having the support from my family and the teammates that I was involved with, I think also creates a kind of passion and a love for the sport, which I think any sportsman will be able to relate with. And I think also in terms of being able to then also get away, I think, from society and getting away from my normally daily activities and being able to go into a field and for an hour or an hour and a half just focus on the little white ball and just take your frustration and just get indulged into that, I think is such a phenomenal way of just getting away from that lesser normal daily routine.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. I love what you mentioned there about the support of your family. How important were they throughout your journey? You do mention that your teachers played a pivotal role, but how important was your family? Because we all know it's such an amazing feeling when you have your family on the side of the field, screaming your name, supporting you throughout everything that you do.
Yeah, Aaron, it's a very big thing in my life because I feel your family in the end are the ones that encourage you to continue pursuing it. So, I mean, in high school, I had the privilege of having my mom and dad always at games, supporting me, making a plan to be at any matches and things. I have a younger brother who also has a love for hockey, which sort of made it quite nice for my parents. So it was sort of, being there for the one and the other. And then also my brother and I sharing quite a lot of time on a hockey field together, challenging one another, trying to be better than the other person makes it quite competitive and also pushes you to reach those boundaries and those limits. I am at the moment married, so my husband is a very big support in my life, and I don't think if I had his support, I would be able to do half the things I do. I mean, he's flown all over the country with me to support me in tournaments, in matches, in anything. I mean, he flew last year down to Cape Town to watch me play hockey. He flew to Durban to go watch me play Riverside. And it's also a nice way for him to be part of this whole experience. Otherwise, I don't think you would get out of the sport exactly what you're trying to put in, if I can call it, I call him my number one supporter. I mean, if you go to a hockey field, you'll always see my husband. Then, I mean, Fiso, the guy from Supersport, will always ask me in the interview, okay, where's your husband sitting? So I think people also know, that person or your family actually in the end encourage you to do your best and actually enable you to achieve goals that you set in life.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. I'd love to touch on your brother and the competitive nature that you guys have had over the past years. Do you believe that that was a pivotal role? Because sometimes we do see that the rivalry between siblings actually help them perform to the best of their ability.
So my brother and I are quite competitive. I think we're both are bad losers. So in other words, it's like the nice thing is it's very competitive, but in the same breath of air, my brother would have been like, "Come, let's go for a run," or "Come, let's go hit hockey balls," or that kind of thing. So also he encouraged me to take that time to go and do certain things. I mean, he got me involved in all these park runs, and I mean, if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have done something like that. And also, my brother's the kind of person, like, if I get tired, he'll be like, "No, come, you're fine. Let's carry on. Let's run some more." So he's very supportive in terms of that. And it's also nice because we share the same goals and the same kind of interest to then, in the end, I don't know, to be better people and to be better sportsmen.
That's very true. I think one of the things that I love about family and having a great support staff around you is they actually support you throughout all the difficulties of being a professional athlete. We all know the challenges of injuries, the challenges of sometimes not being selected for the A team, not being selected for the highest team. How have your support structures, your family, your husband, your parents supported you throughout the difficult moments in life? Because sometimes you do need people to support you through those.
Yeah, Aaron, that's very important. I think also because we're human, we're very susceptible to bad news, and certain people, I think, take it better than other people. But to have that kind of support structure around you, to be able to go and say, well, I didn't make it, or I didn't do this, or things like that. It's nice to go and have somebody to talk to, and just sometimes just to not vent, but just to get other people's input, and to have an encouragement later also to say, okay, come, let's go again. Don't give up. And to have that kind of encouragement, I think, is really important, because I think a lot of people might have thrown towels in already if they didn't have that kind of support structure and people to say, come, fight, you are good at it, you deserve to be there, and don't give up, and things like that, I think, are quite important. I think your family is the core structure behind that often, I think, will help you to either make it through or to either just give up.
Definitely, that is very true. And of course, looking at your hockey career, the most important thing is, to me, the landscape of women in sports. I mean, looking at the year 2019, we saw the netball ladies do so well in Liverpool. We saw Banyana qualifying for their first FIFA World Cup in France. And then earlier this year, the Protea ladies actually played the semi-final in Australia. In terms of women in sports throughout South Africa, how do you think the landscape is looking thus far?
So I think in general, our women are really good in comparison to other countries. I think also the fact that we've put so much, if I can say, homework behind the scenes into it, going through the extra miles and things like that. I do think personally that sometimes females don't get enough credit for what they do. I mean, if you take it in general, like our women in cricket, I mean, I was watching it with my husband, did so really well, and it's quite disappointing that they didn't make a final, but to reach where they did, and doing the hard work behind the scenes is quite well. I mean, our women also with the netball, I mean, we were also watching it. It's just so amazing. And to think we lost against, I think it was New Zealand, in the semi-final with like 1 point is quite frustrating, because, I mean, they did so well and they deserve to be there. And I think to have, or to know that the entire country is supporting you in terms of your tournaments and things like that, is quite nice. Also, I see it with the netball and the hockey now. They've created these kind of premier leagues to try and create the endorsement and the development of junior players. It's also quite a nice thing to see that the country is actually focusing on getting women involved in sport and to trying to create these kind of platforms for them to develop their skills and their talents in order to achieve greater things later on in life.
Very true. And of course, looking at any sports in particular, whether that be the male sport or the female sport, the question of funding is incredibly important, because people in poorer communities don't usually have access to the resources that some might actually have. Looking specifically at the sport of hockey, is there any particular improvement when it comes to funding that you have identified, or maybe how the sport could improve as a whole, most importantly for women?
So I know with the Premier League, there was a lot of companies that got involved. I know there were companies that said we were willing to sponsor and all of us because they knew it was kind of a development phase, and the fact that we were getting different, if I want to call it, players involved. So it wasn't just senior players, it was under 18s, it was under 21s, it was girls that were still and boys that were still in school, which is quite nice because you're giving them that exposure to say, oh wow, but I've played next to a national player, or you know, I've played in this big tournament. And also in one way that helps us, I know there's quite a few Saturdays where at Ramburg Astro up here in Joburg, where they have like a, if you want to call it, a development clinic, where they just invite a whole lot of kids from different areas in to come and just, you know, just play around with a stick and ball. I think the cricket, I know, does it as well, where you just kind of get some kids together from a community and say, come, let's bowl, let's hit. And I think that is good because that creates a kind of an endorsement for the sport, and just to create a kind of a storyline to say that, you know, we are involved and we want people to be involved, and not just focus on, if you want to call it, the provincials or the national players. So also try and get some other people involved in the whole development of the sport.
Definitely. And of course, looking at your hockey career, I would love to know, what is that one moment for you? Because I'm certain you've had many, many years on the hockey field, having started in grade 3 after all, when you didn't like it that much. But I'm certain there must have been moments where you are absolutely stunned and you almost gave yourself a pat on the back and said, you know what? Well done for achieving that.
You know, Aaron, I think the biggest moments of my hockey career was I was still working at the old school that I was at, and I was leaving the school, and Aaron Hunter, the current captain of the national women's team, sent me a message, said, listen, you've been selected for the SSI to go to Egypt for the Africa Cup Games. And I said to her, no, man, you're joking, you're pulling my leg, this is rubbish, you know, because at first I didn't actually believe her. And then she sent me the whole pictures, and I still somehow couldn't believe it. And then all of a sudden, 4, 5, or 6 messages came through saying, you know what, Sylvia, you made the national team. And I was so stunned that in that moment, the first thing that popped in my head was I phoned my husband, and like we couldn't both believe it. And you know, I think that is the greatest feeling in the world to know you've worked for something, you've worked for it so hard, and then to finally have that achievement come through, and you know you've made it. I think, like, I can't actually explain it to you, that feeling that goes through your body. You are literally speechless, but you're ecstatic and you're overjoyed and overexcited. And I mean, when I told my parents as well, they were my dad. I mean, he's a big sportsman, so for my dad, a shame he couldn't at that moment in time phase what I was telling him. And then when it sunk in, we were both literally trying to find words between the two of us, but there was nothing coming out.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. And I think those are memories that you will remember forever. And of course, now I would like to now delve into some of the characters in your team as well. There are 3 players that I know exist in every single team. You always have the singer, the one that is singing and dancing, and the one that's always vibey. You've got the silent assassin, the one that sits quietly in the corner, minds their own business, watches everybody, but when it comes time to play, they perform absolutely brilliantly. And then you've got the joker, the one that's breaking all the jokes in the traveling buses and whatnot. Looking at these 3 individuals, who would you say is the singer, the silent assassin, and the joker in your team?
Well, to be honest with you, our team is a very jolly team. So often one person just needs to start singing and the entire bus starts singing. It's normally the young ones that are the more jolly, lively ones. But if I come to I might be exposing some secrets here. But if we normally do, Bianca Wood and Aaron Hunter are normally the 2 that will start singing and start dancing and getting everybody involved. If I want to call them the silent but the assassins, I definitely think it's my roommate, Matsepo Morapane. She does what she needs to do on the field. She is a phenomenal keeper, but she's pulled into her little, not say her corner, but we have a thing, so we build puzzles onto her. And that is our thing, so we do that. And then she definitely at points and times then comes out with a bang, but she's normally this quiet, silent type. The jokers on tours are very difficult to explain. I think everybody has their own little moments, but I think the biggest jokers on this tour probably has to be, oh gosh. I definitely think it would have to be Cara, because Cara will say to you that she's an introvert when actually I think she's an extrovert. And she always has those little moments where she'll be like, no, come on, guys. And she'll try and get the whole team to laugh. And I think the other bigger joker on the tour has to be Dookie Chamberlain. She just has a sense of aura around her where she can get everybody to laugh or, try and make a joke of everything. So I definitely think those two would definitely be the jokers of the team.
Oh, fantastic. It's always good to find these characters behind the scenes, because when you see people play hockey, it's just one of those where you actually wonder, what are the personalities that actually make this team so vibey as well? Now, Sylvia, I would love to know, you've got, I believe, many years still ahead of you. Is there anything in particular that you would like to achieve? And a lot of people talk about that Olympic gold medal, going to the Olympic Games. This year, unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they were rescheduled. But is that possibly a possibility, or is there anything else that you might like to achieve in your career, having achieved so much already?
Yes, Aaron, I think most people would all like to say I'm an Olympian, and it's definitely something that I'm working for. And with it being, if you want to call it, like only a year away, it is something that is within reach. And I do believe that with hard work and perseverance, anything is possible. So, I mean, it is something that I would like to achieve, and I'm going to pursue it. And if I don't get it, then unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. It will be disappointing. But unfortunately, I do understand that only let's say a certain amount of people can go to the Olympics, but while it is in my reach, I do feel that I'm going to do everything to try and achieve that particular goal, and then take it from there.
I think I'm quite certain that you will get there, so don't worry too much about it. And next year, I mean, we were all building up to this year's Olympic Games, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So I think next year will definitely be the year that we see you donning that green and gold once again for South Africa in Tokyo as well. And then lastly, regarding women in sport, there is a lot of young female athletes that sometimes find themselves in a world where they are torn in two. The question is, am I going to let go of my dream because I can't necessarily pursue it and I don't necessarily see the role models? And sometimes they just need to hear somebody tell them a special message. Sylvia, what special message would you like to give to a young female athlete that looks at you and says, I would someday like to play for my country?
Aaron, I feel the most important thing is, it's something that I live by. I feel that, if you put your mind and your heart to it and you have the right support behind you, anything is possible. I actually have a verse, if you want to call it, engraved on my bracelet on my arm. It says, with God, all things are possible. And it's just something that I believe that if you work towards what you want and you put your mind to it, and something that somebody once told me is literally to go and write down all the goals you want to achieve on a piece of paper. And as you achieve them, you literally go and tick them off. And if you don't achieve them, then you go and you sit back and you reflect and you say, right, why was this goal not achieved? And then you try and pursue it next year again. And that's, I think, is an important thing, is to not give up. I do understand that sometimes we are put in difficult situations, and unfortunately there are sometimes factors that happen that we can't control, like, for example, the COVID pandemic. But I feel personally, if you are able to do what you can achieve, I think there's nothing that can stop you. But if you're just going to give up cheaply or expect to go into something with a shortcut, it's going to make life very difficult. But my personal opinion is, set yourself goals, and whatever you do, is do not stop working for them until you have achieved them.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. That even inspires me. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Sylvia, I'd like to thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for taking the time just to speak to me and to communicate such a special message to so many people across the country. Most importantly, I'd like to thank you for being an incredible woman that has the ability to balance a full-time job and also being able to perform so well on the hockey field as well. And then ultimately, I'd like to thank you for being such a fantastic role model to myself and to so many young women across this country, and most importantly, those young females that want to pursue donning the green and gold for South Africa. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being such an incredible role model.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. It was really an honor, and I really enjoyed just chatting to you in general. And hopefully I do hope that somebody's maybe inspired by this message, and all I can say is, just don't give up on your goals and your dreams.
Definitely. Sylvia, thank you so much.
Thanks, Aaron.